I'm Chris O'Leary, and I'm pissed. Uh, Yesterday, it was announced that Dustin May is going to need Tommy John surgery. The day before, Jordan Hicks of the Cardinals went down with an injury. I've been reading the reports just a minute ago that it's looking like Hicks's injury, well, it's going to take him 4 weeks to decide, but I'm concerned he could require Tommy John surgery again. They're not saying that. They're hopeful. They're talking about PRP, but given the way Hicks' velocity collapsed, he was off 4 or 5 miles an hour, which is not a good sign. I initially kind of thought / hope that was just his shoulder. It's theoretically a shoulder injury you can get over with, as long as it's not a lat tear, a grade 3 tear or something. You can get over a shoulder injury in a month or two versus the 12 to 18 months it can take to get back from Tommy John surgery. But I'm at the point where I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. So I decided to put together this quick presentation that goes over some of my sense of what's going on, my explanation of what's going on. So let's get to it. So in terms of an overview of the epidemic, what's happening and why, first of all, what's happening is completely predictable. This is a tweet from April 16, 2019, talking about Dustin May's Tommy John twist, which was all too obvious, too easily visible. I've been very consistent in terms of my view of Dustin May's pitch mechanics. Again, October 18, 2020, Tommy John twist. It's very obvious. It's very visible. This from October 18, 2020. This picture kind of reminded me of Luis Severino of the Yankees in terms of his arm getting up early, and early can be just as bad as late and sometimes worse. But again, what Dustin May was doing was all extremely easy to see. Here's Dustin May channeling Jameson Taillon, especially the Pirates era Taillon. This is from July 2020. Again, October 2020, maybe May's arm is up a little bit more, but you've still got that twist in his wrist, which is causing the problem, which creates the tension, which causes the timing problem. A more recent tweet kind of explaining what's going on from May 1st, the kind of the core problem with what's going on with Dustin May and how he moves is that by getting his arm up so early, that creates a weak link, if not a break in the kinetic chain, which requires that he does certain things in order to compensate for that weak link in the kinetic chain, one of which is the Tommy John twist. I don't know whether he was taught it or whether he does it as an accommodation for getting his arm up so early, but the result is, regardless, an inefficiency and something that's problematic, a problematic movement, something that's very obviously problematic and that was very easy to see. In terms of Jordan Hicks, I tweeted this just a couple of days ago. Someone was trying to tell me, including one of the Dr. Mike Marshall true believers. He may be the only Marshall true believer left. This guy's been around. Pronate has been around for 15 years or so, trying to sell Marshall stuff. He just simply refused to learn from the lesson that Marshall is teaching. Someone tried to make an argument based off of what I guess was a Tread Athletics post that Hicks has made some changes. His mechanics maybe seem better. I weighed in on April 29, 2021, saying I don't see any significant changes in Jordan Hicks' pitch mechanics, something that sadly was proven true just a couple of days later. The vast majority of the pitch mechanics industry has no idea what they're talking about. They're only seeing what they want to see. Again, this is another tweet from kind of the underlying tweet is April 8th. This is my comment upon that tweet. The underlying tweet suggests that Hicks is moving better, that his arm was more efficient, his arm action's more efficient. I don't see anything. And the only thing I see is that given the position of his arm, it looks like he may be flying open more and not less, which is bad, that his glove side is pulling more and not less. Now, I certainly agree that that is the definition of efficient. That's the modern definition of efficient. But the only thing that'll allow you to do is to throw hard, easily, quickly, but not in a manner that's sustainable, that's durable, as Jordan Hicks' problems should be all too obvious. I got into it with Kevin Wheeler of KMOX, the Cardinals flagship. He tweeted some kind of happy talk about how Hicks was going to be better, and I didn't see it. I didn't see it based on the game that I was seeing. And Wheeler accused me of trying to be that guy. And the fact is, I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm just trying to be the guy who's realistic and who says things exactly as they are. And what I saw was that Jordan Hicks' pitching arm is flat and not up when his shoulders start to turn, and his pitching arm starts to come under load, which is bad. And as I said, March 14, 2021, nothing has changed, so nothing's going to change for Hicks. Generally, this goes elbow then shoulder, but it's hardly unprecedented for it to go elbow then elbow. I'm deeply concerned about Jordan Hicks' elbow. I'm concerned about his season, and at this point, I'm concerned about his career, given that he simply can't stay healthy. And this is another frame again, March 14, 2021, the same basic clip, which shows that Jordan Hicks' massive timing problem, which is the root cause of his problems, it remains. So as to what's going on, the Driveline thing, the Driveline guys will protest everything that I've said. Well, here's a funny story. So in 2007, late 2007, early 2008, I was working with this guy. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Kyle Body, we'll call him that. Knew him through the Baseball 101 discussion board of Baseball Fever. He was asking me some questions. He was a kind of a post high school pitcher who I think was just trying to play kind of, rec ball, not necessarily college ball, but had a shoulder problems as a result of basically the inverted W. He was doing bad things with his pitching arm, and that was causing shoulder problems. So I gave him some information related to Marshall, combined with my knowledge of what the best pitchers actually do, Ryan, Seaver, Verlander at the time. And Bodie got back to me and talked about how much better his arm was feeling. What's really ironic about this email from Kyle Body, who's the founder of Driveline, he's the big name, is that he is now selling the very thing that got his pitching arm, the inverted W, which he's now selling as the elbow spiral. I call it the inverted L. It's another term for it. But Kyle Body of Driveline and Driveline, they're selling the exact thing that got Kyle Body's arm. Now, the gamble that Driveline is taking, that they're making, and they're making with the arms of young pitchers, is that by combining Paul Nyman's pitching mechanics stuff, the inverted arm actions, inverted W, inverted L, inverted V, if you combine that with Dr. Mike Marshall's conditioning stuff, that will yield free velocity, a free lunch, basically, where it'll enable anything goes in terms of pitching mechanics. I don't see any evidence that that's the case. All you have to do is just look at injuries. Obviously, there's no free lunch. Pitchers are throwing harder, but they're also getting hurt more often. And we're losing 1 to 2 pitchers a day, which is absolutely insane. The worst part is, and the thing that really pisses me off, is that this is what got Verlander. I saw Verlander's problem. I was actually at this game filming Verlander. March 6, 2020, saw an elbow angle change, saw a timing change. And this is the result of Verlander shifting from his natural Nolan Ryan, Tom Seaver pitching mechanics to follow the conventional wisdom, the nonsense, the drivel that the people at Driveline are pushing. And I immediately saw the implication because I'd seen it before with Verlander. It happened in 14, 15. And I tweeted as much on March 6, 2020. Here's the problem with Verlander. His arm action looks shorter. His elbow angle is tighter. He's closer to short arming the ball than long arming it. I know that's a thing, but it's a stupid thing. I see no evidence why short arming is necessarily better than long arming. My problem is with people who are just right at 90 degrees. And I think by trying to shift Verlander from a short armor to a long armor, Ron Wolforth and the Driveline guys put Verlander right at that really vulnerable 90-degree angle. And it's so stupid because Verlander did this before. And the last time he tried to do this to make this elbow angle change, he hurt his triceps. And, Verlander got hurt, needed Tommy John surgery. It's just an incredible waste of exactly what happened. So some of what's going on with pitchers, why are they breaking it at faster and faster rates? It starts with what I call the Tommy John twist, which is taught via a cue called pointing the ball at second base or at center field. This is an older cue I came across 15, 20 years ago when my kids were first starting to play. First really started to notice it in Shelby Miller. Then I noticed it a little more recently in Hunter Harvey. This is why Hunter Harvey can't stay successful and why he's a reliever at best. Also noticed it, and I know for a fact that Matt Harvey was taught it. I did an evaluation of Matt Harvey, and he wasn't doing this Tommy John twist when I saw him. Not that I could see. I was working off of SD video, blurry SD video, and I didn't see any evidence of this. At some point, it seems like it was introduced into Harvey's arm action. I don't know by who, but this is kind of the root cause of Harvey's problem. Also, there's Riley Pint, who I feel terrible for. Jeff Passan went all in on Riley Pint in his book, The Arm. And I've actually been trying to see where Riley Pint is going to be pitching this year, and I can't actually tell where he's going to be pitching. I'm not sure whether he's going to even make it out of spring training or whether he's going to stay behind in spring training due to an injury or something. But you can see Riley Pint has that Tommy John twist, that twist in his pitching arm and the wrist of his pitching arm, and that's creating a timing problem where his pitching arm, rather than being up, instead is flat. As for the quote unquote studies, the first, just a complete embarrassment, Will Carroll's basically Modus 1.0 study of the Tommy John twist. One of the things that's frustrating is, so Will told me that they never used any video, so they don't actually know what pitchers are doing, whether they were doing the Tommy John twist or not. So whether they got insignificant results, is that because the Tommy John twist doesn't cause problems or because they weren't actually doing the twist? And what's strange is that Will's produced this graphic showing load, and the lower single orange line is load, and I can see two peaks in load and maybe another third peak where the load jumps up, which is exactly what you would expect to see if the Tommy John twist was increasing the load on the elbow. Now, I'm not at all convinced that Modus's algorithm is correct, whether they're computing loads correctly, but I just find the Will Carroll study just to be a complete embarrassment, because he's ignoring the fact that this chart at a minimum shows some significant impacts. And then there's another group of Modus characters with some other outside people did a second study, which led me to coin the term the replication crisis, where the replication crisis is saying that studies aren't demonstrating the problems. And one of the things that I've noticed is that, in my case at least, with the studies that either don't, the three studies, the Will Carroll Modus 1.0, the Modus 2.0, and the Dogui study that supposedly debunk my work, they don't actually replicate my work. They don't replicate my methodology because they don't use the right milestones. They set up and then defeat a straw man. It's a classic straw man argument, where the Modus 2.0 study basically establishes and judges timing based off of stride foot contact. And I've told, Hansen of Modus, which is now dead, basically, that I don't use stride foot contact. So to say that a study that is based off of stride foot contact debunks my work is simply absurd. I don't judge timing based off of stride foot contact and haven't for years. I'll use it sometimes to explain, but my actual algorithm is a little more sophisticated than that. Dogwe had a similar problem where he, instead of studying the inverted W, studied a more subtle problem called early torso rotation, which is basically why he didn't replicate. In terms of the inverted W and timing and why the inverted W is bad, why the Tommy John twist is bad, this is my favorite picture of Steven Strasburg, and it really shows Strasburg's problem early on in his career is that when his shoulders started turning, his pitching arm was flat rather than up. And that's perfectly illustrated in this early career Strasburg. This may have actually been, it's probably first, rookie year Strasburg. And you can very easily see that because he did the inverted W, when his shoulders start turning, his pitching arm was flat and not up. And that's the core problem with the inverted W. That's the core problem with the Tommy John twist. They're not necessarily bad in and of themselves, but what they do is they tend to put a pitcher, they can put a pitcher in a bad position when the shoulders start to rotate. That's the problem with the Tommy John twist, as it was with the inverted W, as it is with Driveline's elbow spiral. So what do you do about it? I mean, it starts with patience. Justin Verlander wasn't JV until his first or second year in pro ball, which is after at least 3 years at Old Dominion. He went to college. He didn't go into the big league straight out of high school. Nolan Ryan did, but it took him a couple of years. He had to work through an elbow thing, an early career elbow thing. He was probably in his early 20s or so when he started to become Nolan Ryan, the Nolan Ryan that we know with the Mets. And he was probably in his mid 20s before he was the Nolan Ryan who was pitching no hitters with the Angels and the Astros. Tom Seaver was similar. At a minimum, he was 20 years old or so. He wasn't trying to be the stud as a high school freshman. Rather, Tom Seaver became a stud in pro ball. Mariano Rivera was actually a perfect example of this, where Rivera, the Yankees actually tried to boost Rivera's velocity, get him closer to 95, and Rivera had elbow problems that they thought was Tommy John surgery, but it turned out to just be a tendon problem. But Rivera spent his life living at 92, 93, and when he tried to run up to 95 or so, that's when he started problems. That's the only time Rivera had problems. But again, the other thing you can notice in this is the timing. The foot is down, the shoulders are turning, the arm is up. It's a very consistent pattern. This is what good pitchers look like. This is what Verlander looked like up until Ron Wolforth changed him. And the Verlander thing is really frustrating because I saw the problems with Verlander in spring training 2020, started communicating with Brent Strom, who I know from his time with the Cardinals, and basically all during the interim between spring training and summer camp, I was trying to convince Strom that Verlander had a problem and he needed to revert all the Driveline stuff, all the stuff that Wolforth was teaching, and that didn't happen. And Verlander broke, needing Tommy John surgery. That was really terrible. Very frustrating seeing an incredible quality arm, one of the last quality arms like Justin Verlander, being destroyed by an incredibly foolish pitching coach in the form of Ron Wolforth, who taught, the conventional wisdom without any concern for how Verlander moved and how successful he had been moving as well as he did. And you could see, this is classic Nolan Ryan with the Rangers. The older you get, the better you have to move, and this is moving pretty well. The foot is almost down and the pitching arm is almost up. That's why Nolan Ryan was able to pitch into his 40s. Same thing for Tom Seaver. This is younger, 69 Seaver. What looks like a twist is actually a curveball or slider grip for Seaver. But again, the foot's almost down. You can see the rocks popping up from the mound, and the pitching arm is up. Foot's down, arms up. Good timing. In terms of some of the good pitchers who are out there, Garrett Cole, especially with the Astros, he's not quite as clean as he was with the Astros as with the Yankees, but Garrett Cole is still a good one to watch. The concern I have with Garrett Cole is, as with David Price, is that Garrett Cole has a tendency, especially with the Yankees, to get too active too soon with his glove side. This is a really nice glove side from Garrett Cole. This is a really quality picture of Garrett Cole that shows really quality timing. And this is very different than the Garrett Cole I saw with the Pirates, who came through St. Louis all the time when they were playing the Cardinals. This is a much better Garrett Cole, who doesn't have the Tommy John twist that I saw when Cole was with the Pirates. Another pitcher for people to study is Aroldis Chapman. I mean, he throws the hell out of the ball, and obviously throwing the hell out of the ball is going to increase your risk. But if you compare Jordan Hicks and Aroldis Chapman, Chapman's been around for 10 years, more than 10 years, and Hicks, Chapman's had a few injuries, but you throw 104, what do you expect? Chapman has been far, far, far more durable than Hicks, throwing as hard, if not harder than Hicks. And I would argue that it's because Chapman moves extremely well. His timing is very good. Again, you can see here, the foot's not yet down and the arm is almost up. Chapman is also ridiculously athletic in terms of how he moves. So, in terms of modern pitchers, you've got Garrett Cole, you've got Aroldis Chapman. Don't stride as long as Chapman does. You don't need to slide that long. Other pitchers, Carlos Martinez is looking pretty good. I was afraid that he'd have to get away from the Cardinals to be successful. He's put up quite a string of starts in 2021. I'm not a fan of Trevor Bauer. It looks like his timing is degraded. I think thanks to the Driveline influence on the Dodgers, they've really bought into the Driveline stuff, and it's causing them problems. It wouldn't surprise me if that's part of what's going on with Dustin May. One of the things that really frustrates me is Tom House. I don't understand why Tom House doesn't teach what Nolan Ryan did. Nolan Ryan breaks most of the rules that Tom House preaches. I don't understand what happened with Mark Pryor and Anthony Reyes. House has never explained that, why they moved so differently than Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan had perfect timing, whereas Mark Pryor and Anthony Reyes were big inverted W guys. I believe that House's idea of forcing the arm slot via forcing level eyes is a bad idea. There are lots of very successful, healthy, relatively durable, unlevel eye pitchers, starting with Nolan Ryan. There's also the issue of House's forcing a long stride, which, and I've mentioned this a little bit before. I've done some work, had some communications with Adam Wainwright. And one of the reasons why Wainwright has been better over the past 3 years is because I convinced him that his attempts to stride as far as he could and maximize his extension were causing his problems. If you've looked at the numbers on Adam Wainwright, his vertical release point has gone up over the past couple of years, especially in his better years. And that's because he's not always trying to stride as far as he did in the past. He's not trying to get as much extension as he was in the past. That's because by trying to maximize his stride length, Adam Wainwright was screwing up his timing. He was changing how and when he went into foot plant, and that caused problems for Wainwright. The change I helped Wainwright make is to not focus as much on extension, thereby improving his timing, cleaning up his timing. And you can see the results in Wainwright, who's, he's not throwing that hard, but he's very, very effective. And with that freaking curveball, throwing that from a higher release point, a slightly higher release point, is absolutely devastating. As long as his timing is good, that Adam Wainwright curveball is everything that it once was. And the big concern is blood clots, thoracic outlet syndrome. You just had Joe Kelly go down with what sounds like NTOS, or his shoulder's absolutely been fried by the Tommy John twist. Joe Kelly moved very similarly to Shelby Miller, to Hunter Harvey. It's the same basic movement pattern where you get this big twist in the wrist, which causes the arm to be flat and not up when the shoulders start to turn. I see this very similar to the 2008 financial crisis, where the promise of bailouts is leading to risk taking, And that is leading to the increasing incidence of timing problems and therefore the increasing incidence of blood clots in baseball pitchers. And my concern, I think it's essentially guaranteed that if pitchers continue to throw as they do to achieve the velocity in the artificial manners via the shortcuts and tricks that they are, that it's almost certain that another baseball pitcher after J.R. Richard, who was a hero of mine, another baseball pitcher is going to suffer a at best debilitating, life-threatening illness, if not die as a result of pitching. Blood clots are bad. Strokes are bad. You do not want to mess with blood clots and strokes, and that's exactly what baseball is doing right now. And if baseball wants to avoid a concussion level event, then baseball needs to stop it with the tricks and the shortcuts and the focus on quick and easy velocity, and instead shift to a more classic patience-based model. Maybe pitchers aren't going to throw as hard in high school and college as they once did, but they're going to be much more likely to be suited as major league pitchers rather than guys who make it to the major leagues and pitch for a year or two before they blow out their arms. And, 3/4 of them never even make it to the major leagues. I don't think the current model of teaching pitchers stuff without their giving informed consent is ethical. I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's good for the game.